Hello everybody, welcome back to AnimeQuest, and this is my episode 1 review for Studio Trigger and A1 Pictures, Darling in the FranXX, a new mecha series by the studios, and boy, it is gorgeous. Anyways, first off, I'd like to do a bit of a spoiler warning, because we're going to be somewhat covering the episode in detail. I'm going to give some plot threads, talk about stuff. So, basically, it starts out, and the story starts, and we have this girl who is initially not named. She has these red horns and pink hair, and just this incredible character design in general. And it starts off where she turns around, and she looks at a bunch of these black and blue blobs for the quick moment that it's there. But when you look at the still shot presented, it's much more detailed than that. They're the blue, really amazing-looking creatures that eventually are known as Klaxosaurs, which is a very interesting name. It's like a cross between something, I don't know, a Klaxo whatever, and a dinosaur. It's very interesting. They are the antagonists of the series, as far as we know, and they're presented in a very scary, powerful, and menacing way. And this girl, this pink-haired girl with red horns, supposedly has the blood of a Klaxosaur in her. Therefore, even though she is a weapon, a tool to be used by humanity, she ultimately is, well, they're afraid of her. Kind of like an Eren being the Titan in Attack on Titan sort of situation. It's a pretty good premise and setup so far. The other bits of the series are that there are these pilots known as parasites that pilot mechs. And basically there has to be one male and one female pilot in order to pilot these mechs that are known as FranXX. And these partner combos are called Darlings. So Darling and the FranXX. It's a very fun and very vivid looking show with some good emotion and genuinely great animation. I mean, Studio Trigger and A1 Pictures is an A-class team-up. I'm just going to say it. So the plot of the first episode for Darling in the FranXX starts out, and our pink-haired Vixen, our main female heroine of the series, is being transported to this colony that's a very futuristic colony. Like, there's these interior dome, like, habitat areas and bodies of water and all this, but it's basically just sort of the same premise as Attack on Titan. You have this big walled-off area with giant enemies that advance and attack it on occasion, but it's also a mech series. It's really interesting. Anyway, she's getting transported to this facility in these really amazing-looking airships. Have I mentioned that this anime looks beautiful, at least based off of the first episode? Before we have a chance to see her get there, though, we flash to our main male protagonist, who is essentially alone. This is where the connection between these two characters come, because they're seen as loners. She's sort of half monster, and nobody wants to be associated with her, and he has yet to find a darling, and is kind of being cast out because he doesn't have the ability to be a pilot of these mechs known as FranXX. He's kind of, sitting in the woods alone, and he finds a bird, and he sees the bird hit the glass of like this biodome area, and its blood is left on, smeared on the glass, and it starts to hop away, and he chases it because he wants to make sure it's okay. He's clearly a very kind-hearted main protagonist. Regardless, he ends up finding our main female character swimming, and she's essentially naked, and at first he looks and he doesn't really notice what's going on, and then he shows a bit of he's very polite, as he doesn't want to look at her swimming naked because, well, he seems to be a very nice main protagonist. He's even going to end up leaving this whole facility because he has no purpose there and he doesn't want to get in the way. Kind of shows you just what type of character he is. Now, as far as our main female character, she is actually known as 02, because the characters here, these young characters who are parasites, which is the name that this show has for pilots, are actually, they're only named by number. They don't have their own names unless it seems as though someone has signs a name to them. For example, our main character, whose name is Hiro, he actually has his own number, and he named his former pilot, his former parasite partner, Naomi, and she ends up, dying in the episode, and I'm no doubt thinking he's going to feel responsible for that later in future episodes, but for now that's not important, so we'll brush that to the side. Regardless, he sees her and meets her at this lake, and he's immediately stricken by her beauty, by how she like is so graceful, and she just has like no modesty. She's a very interesting character, and it's very funny seeing their dynamic during this scene, how she basically almost kind of sexually assaults him, but you know, he's okay with it, so it's not sexual assault, but still very interesting. She gets taken away, and he's just smitten by her. He doesn't know what to think, but he knows he has to move on because, well, she's kind of in a whole nother world than he is. She's this top secret government, you know, secret essentially, not very good grammar there, I guess, but still, and he's kind of just a nobody. He's going to be leaving anyways, and it's very interesting. They kind of get separated for a moment, and then it cuts to the cadets of the pilots, and they're having like a ceremony, and amidst this ceremony, before it gets started, they're all sort of talking bad about Hiro behind his back. By the way, that blue-haired girl right there, her name is Ichigo. I just found that interesting because it makes me think of Ichigo from Bleach, even though Ichigo means strawberry, so maybe Ichigo from Bleach had a very weird name. Not the point. I'm getting sidetracked. Anyways, they're talking about him in a very negative light. Some of them are kind of thinking like, well, he wasn't really useful, maybe kind of good riddance, blah, 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 blah. But before the ceremony could get underway, which it's at this very beautiful looking like location where they're having this ceremony where they're announcing these guys as cadets, but before that ceremony can go underway, the entire place gets attacked by this giant blue Klaxosaur, and it's a pretty amazing fight. It kind of really reminded me of Gurren Lagann in its execution. Now, I don't know if this has the same creator as Gurren Lagann, such as Kill la Kill did. Hiroyuki Imaishi, I believe his name is. I'm not sure if it's the same director. I actually should look that up. Regardless, it's very beautifully animated, and the wasteland around this whole sort of colony is very, very vivid. And you start seeing the, you know, dirt break apart as this Klaxosaur, this big black and blue Klaxosaur, starts assaulting this place. And they're trying to fight back with cannons that are inside of this colony that sprout out and shoot at it. Clearly, they have defense mechanisms for this, but, you know, they're not very good. It eventually railroads to the scene where this tiger-like Klaxosaur, as far as Hiro calls it, he actually says another Klaxosaur, like, holy shit, what is that? Which this turns out to actually be the robot that 02, who's the pink-haired vixen that we have as the protagonist, the main heroine of the series. She's piloting it, and it's a very animal-like design, and the way it's attacking it, it's easy that they could mistake it for another Klaxosaur. It's very interesting, and the whole fight is very beautifully animated. There's also some other stunning looking scenes in it too, like this massive explosion. Really, really love it. Regardless of the power and ferocity of this very dog-like Klaxosaur mech, I guess, that she's piloting, she still ends up losing, and her co-pilot ends up being very, very damaged as a result of it. I'm not sure if he survived. She said he wasn't, but who knows. Regardless, she happens upon Hiro, and Hiro's not going to let her go it alone. He feels very responsible. He thinks to himself that he can't let her do this, even though she doesn't seem to care and she's not afraid of death. She welcomes him. She pulls him into the ship with him, and they have a very intimate kiss. Clearly, this is establishing a romantic relationship between these two. Anyways, due to them, they must have been, you know, a good fit, and he finally found his place as a darling when he gets brought into her mech, and they transform into a mech that looks eerily similar to the main mech from Star Driver, which, if you're not aware, is actually the first anime I ever reviewed on this channel quite a few years ago, back when I was still in high school. Man, that video is cringy, but that's not the point. She brings him into it, and they have this badass transformation, and it looks really cool. I remember kind of thinking to myself, I didn't really like the Star Driver designs back then, but I've kind of grown accustomed to them. And looking at this show, I really like the designs of this show. Everything, this entire show is gorgeously animated, and that is definitely one of its strong suits. So they have a battle, and they defeat the Klaxosaur with the new mech that she is in, and the episode ends on kind of a high note with them, you know, repairing the damaged building and stuff, and supposedly this 02, as she's called, has found a friend in Hiro, and potentially a romantic partner, as well as a partner when it comes to fighting the Klaxosaurs further on in the series. I'm really interested to keep watching this series. It's beautifully animated, the music's pretty good, and even though we haven't seen a lot as far as the characters go so far, not a lot of characters got any sort of presence or screen time in this apart from this funny old scientist and his assistant, as well as 02 herself and our main man Hiro. I'm very interested to get to know the rest of these characters. I kind of want to see what other mechs and stuff there are in this series. There's only one episode at the moment, but I'm very excited. Anyways, have you guys seen the first episode of Darling in the Franxx yet? Did you guys like it? Are you excited for this series? Were you aware of this series? Please let me know in the comments below. Also, be sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you guys on the next quest for anime.